All right, we will get started. My name is Aaron Kacharski. I'm doing some work with Recovery Advocacy Project. The vision and goal of Recovery Advocacy Project is to really work to give community organizing skills and a voice to people in recovery, family members, supporters, allies. And this vote recovery idea actually came from a Pennsylvania town hall meeting we had in May or June, where one of the participants in that town hall meeting asked the question, how close are we to having recovery be a single voter issue that inspires people to get out to the polls? And so a single voter issue is something like the environment or gun control or reproductive rights. Like, those are issues that motivate people to get to the polls. And so the conversation that we had following that question was amazing. And we thought, hey, why don't we duplicate that from now until Election Day and encourage people in recovery and supporters of recovery to answer that question of, you know, what are the issues that we care about as voters? What inspires us to get to the polls or to get involved in our communities? You know, what is a recovery voter? And we actually did some really cool polling on the question, and we asked 1,200 likely voters if they would consider switching party to vote for a candidate that had a more attractive stance on mental health issues or recovery issues. And so we asked 1,200 likely voters, and 42% of them said yes. And another 20% said, I'm not sure, but I would consider it. And so that's a lot of voters in terms of a single issue vote. And then we actually asked that same question to people in recovery, and over 1,000 people responded. And the number climbed up to close to 90%, said that they would consider voting for a candidate that wasn't a part of how they normally identify it as a political party, if they had a better stance. And so, you know, let's take the D or the R out of this. You know, like, this isn't about candidates or political party. This is about each individual recovery voter asking themselves a question of what's important, you know, what inspires them, and then working to do the research on candidates that are running for office to see if they're speaking to us. If they are, great. If they're not, maybe they don't deserve our vote, right? And so if we took that D and R off of people's candidates' names, how would we know how to vote for people? And the answer is, it's the issues, right? And so the last thing I want to share before we get started, I'll hand things over to the moderators. The last piece of the poll that we asked those same 1,000 people in recovery about if they knew where candidates stood on recovery, and over 50% said no, that they didn't know. And so on one hand, we're saying, you know, we would consider voting for somebody based on their stance on recovery or mental health or the issues that we care about, whether it be criminal justice issues or ending mass incarceration or housing, right? But on the other hand, we're saying, but we haven't done the research. And so that's what vote recovery is about, is really individually, all of us going through this process of asking ourselves, what's going to inspire me, and how can I hold people running for office accountable to that? And so you're going to hear from some recovery voters today talk about the issues that inspire them to get involved in their community and or vote. And so it's not like a typical, you're not going to hear somebody's recovery story. You know, you're really going to hear about what inspires them and what they do in their communities. And they're going to talk about civic engagement. And then after we hear from our speakers, we created a vote recovery hub, and it's a website. We're gonna walk you through that, and it really allows each person to dive deeper into the issues that you care about. And if you want to register to vote, you can register to vote online. If you don't know where to vote, you can find your polling location. If you want to learn more about voter suppression, if you want to learn about voter eligibility laws or voter registration deadlines, it has all that on the website. So we're going to walk you through that process. And so I'm going to hand things over to two people that have been on the organizing team. This region has done a fantastic job organizing this for everybody today. And so it's good to see people turn out on a Saturday. I want to turn things over to Joanna Vance and T. Scott. Joanna's from West Virginia, T. Scott's from Maryland. So they are facilitating the discussion today. Thank you, everyone.
You want to start it off, T?
Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining in. My name is Tiffany Scott, and I am the Maryland State Lead for the Recovery Advocacy Project. I want to thank you all for joining in for the Vote Recovery Region 3, Virginia, West Virginia, Delaware, Maryland, D.C., and Pennsylvania Town Hall. We're excited to have all of you on board, especially because it's a Saturday, right?
Yeah.
To get you on there. So I know everyone may be Zoom exhausted, but we are here today really to just power out the conversation about vote recovery because it's important for you and the communities in which you are serving. A little bit about the Recovery Advocacy Project. The Recovery Advocacy Project is a network of people and organizations across the country advocating for addiction and recovery. RAP is committed to giving people in recovery, family members, allies, and supporters, recovery grassroots tools for organizing to think and act locally. Together, through civic engagement, community tools, and also advocacy efforts, we are building a visible forefront and effective contingency and demand of community and public policy for recovery-based solutions that will be in response to Americans' longstanding addiction and recovery a long-standing recovery process. So I really want to thank you all for joining in today. We have some fantastic panelists. They're doing great work across the country. And this is going to be a great opportunity for us to really have a dialogue. We have a chat box that's open and ongoing. So please, just at this time, just take a moment, just let us know where you're from, what's important to you as it pertains to vote recovery, and I'll turn it over to our panelists. So I'll give it back to Joanna. Thank you all for joining in.
Thank you, T. I don't have much to say after that, just that we are so glad that everyone is here, and please take this opportunity to use the chat box and to tell us where you are from and to tell us where your passion lies. And we will be keeping up with everyone in the chat, and also there will be a Q&A at the end. Let's just go ahead and kick it off. Our first speaker is John Shinholzer, and he is the president and the co-founder of the McShin Foundation in Richmond, Virginia. I tell you what, they know how to throw a recovery fest. I just got to get down a couple weekends ago. And so John is a United States Marine Corps veteran. He has been working helping individuals in recovery since his own recovery is in 1982. And most importantly, he is a powerhouse for the recovery community. So take it away, John.
Thank you, Joanne. Joanne, T, Aaron, Garrett, you're doing a great job organizing and putting this stuff together. I'm very proud to be part of it and humbled to be able to participate. You know, I was thinking, you know, why do I care about voting in the first place? And, you know, for me, my first election I could really vote in, a presidential election, was President Carter. And I went to vote, and I was going to actually vote for him because I lived in Georgia at the time. But I went into a blackout. I got all messed up, and I missed the opportunity. You know, my next presidential election to vote in was President Reagan, and I was in the Marine Corps at the time. And all I knew was Reagan was big on military. Carter wasn't so big on military. So being in the Marine Corps, at that time, we were in a conflict with Iran when they had the Iranian hostages. And all of our warfighting equipment was basically shit. You know, we had all leftover Vietnam equipment, you know, and Reagan kept talking about 600 ship Navy. We're going to build you up, give you the weapons you need. So, and the reason I bring this up, because I think that I didn't know there was a difference between a Democrat and a Republican, to be honest with you. But I think I said, well, hell, I like Republicans. They want to give me weapons so I can kill. And I got clean at the same time. So I've been clean since '82. I've been in recovery. Now, fast forward, you know, I become this useful, productive member in our community. Typically, I'm not a radical rabid right winger, but you know, I vote military. You know, I vote who's going to look after the troops, who, you know, who's going to respect the flag, who's going to pay their taxes. You know, I was one of those guys. And you know, I was even a life member in the Republican Party. And in the year 2000, when the Faces and Voices of Recovery came about, and all of a sudden I started hearing language about, you know, constituency of concern, get out there and let these politicians know about recovery. You know, I threw myself into this arena from a spiritual calling on the inside. You know, I had this calling to do so, to be that face and voice of recovery. And I found myself in the middle of a bunch of rabid right-wingers. I'm trying to explain to them that recovery is cool, it's okay. You can have bills and pass laws that help us and provide more recovery services and treatment. And you don't need so many jails and prisons and so forth and so on. And, you know, I went to war with these guys. And I'm telling you guys, for 10 straight years, I'm this lone Republican in these Republican right-wing committee meetings, pounding away. And I'm investing my money to have access to these meetings and these tables. I'm a donor. I'm what they call a campaign donor. You can Google my name, and you know, I don't give as much as some people, but I do what I can. But along the way, now here's where it got really interesting. I ran into a bunch of Democrats running for office, and they sounded and acted like I wanted people to sound and act. So I started putting my money where my mouth was and helping people on the side. I will campaign for you if you got a good piece of legislation, or you've got a good policy that's going to help recovery, it's going to reduce the impact addiction's having, I'm on your side. So somewhere in the mix, the last 10, 15 years, I got this purple reputation in my community, in my state, and nationally. I vote purple. I educate people. What is purple? Purple's recovery. You know, whatever candidate, left or right, I don't care. If you're an honest person and you're good for recovery, and you're going to be about policies that help us, and you're going to draw down on ridiculous drug policies, and you're going to invest funding in recovery and treatment, I'm all in, and I'm for you. In the last 5, 10 years, it's crazy around my house. I mean, election time, in my front yard, I might have a congressional party of one party in my front yard, and you know, Republican. I might have a Democrat governor sign in my front yard. So my neighbors, they're always confused on what's going on at my house. But that's true, you know. And now politicians, when they run for office, they want our vote, they want our contributions, but more important, they want to know what recovery is about. So I'm able to really continue to be that face and voice of recovery. So I educate my friends, I educate people in recovery, I educate families, I educate you guys, you know, the ones that need it. But I will tell you one thing, I'm one of those true purple people, okay? I'm not a left winger, and I'm not a right winger that's only going to say I vote purple to try to get purple voters to vote for the party I want you to vote for. I'm not that guy. I'm a true, honest, spiritual purple voter. And I know, I see it in recovery all the time. I got rabid left wingers, rabid right wingers. I know damn good and well they ain't voting outside their party. They lying about that purple thing. But that ain't going to be me. And moving forward, I hope this is a spiritual principle type thing we're working on here, because I know damn good and well we can change the landscape of policies, recovery, when we do become that constituency of concern, when we do have organizations that can identify 5, 10, 15 million recovery voters, purple voters, we change the world, and we can do that, and I know that. And that's one thing I think I can live long enough to see. I may not live long enough to see all the changes I'd like to see, but but I can live long enough to see that purple being a constituency of concern. So that's really one of my exciting tidbits for this little thing. I apologize. I got a lot of stuff I'm in the middle of. I can't hang out to the end. I was talking to Joanne earlier. I know you're going to have a Q&A in the end, but they're very capable of answering any questions anybody might have. And y'all know how to reach me. So if I can be of service or give you any suggestions, don't hesitate to contact me, call me. I'm pretty accessible. And once again, it's an honor to be part of this. I'm blessed to be part of this. And I'm a real purple guy, okay? So thank you. Love you all.
Oh, thank you so much, John. That was great. I'm gonna hashtag that purple voter. I vote purple.
Yeah, I think it's important, a couple things that you said. One, you just gave us that new hashtag, which I'm going to push that out like today, like absolutely to vote purple, right? And it's more important. The other thing was more important that you said that you're not for or against any political party. And I just want to make sure everyone is clear on this line that this is a nonpartisan effort to promote the recovery vote. That's it. You know, we're not here to gain any attention for any political party. And we just want the recovery voters to actually register and actually vote. So we hope that from this effort here on the line today, that we empower you, we give you some tools and some information that you can take back to your communities and vote recovery. So Joanna, back to you.
Shoo, it's gonna be a great lineup of speakers, guys. It's already going good. Anna, I love you. I'm so sorry if I mess up your whole entire introduction. Anna Mabel Jones is, she has her CPRS, NCPRSS, and she is the Oxford House Resource Coordinator and is in her 4th year training to become a core energetics practitioner. Anna radiates the power of recovery and transformation, working with community organizations and leaders to promote the societal benefits of prevention, treatment, and recovery for substance abuse and mental illness. And as a wellness recovery action plan facilitator and CCAR recovery coach trainer, she created a 12-step Bible study called Life Recovery, and she is a Reiki master teacher. I asked you about that word and I might have said it wrong still. So thank you, Anna.
Thank you, Joanna. Hello, everybody. Again, thank you for showing up on a Saturday. This is so awesome. I'm just honored to be a part of this and be on such an esteemed panel to talk about the importance of us voting recovery. So again, my name is Anna and I'm a woman in long-term recovery. And what that means for me is I haven't used a drink or a drug since August the 30th, 1999. Yes, I just celebrated 21 years. So I'm excited about that because of that, I can stand before you today as a woman, as a mother, as a person who feels strongly about mental health and recovery, incarceration, just a lot of things that are on the ballot this year. John Shingler talked about vote purple. That just touched my heart. So I'm with him on that, and I'm going to be like, vote purple, vote purple. So I wrote down something because sometimes I can go on and on. But recovery related issues and supports will be influenced by this election. And no matter who wins, they need to know that recovery voices are active and organized and paying attention, right? Because we're doing that.
Mm-hmm.
This election more than others in our past have big differences in their views towards healthcare, addiction, and recovery supports. It's important for them to know we are here, active and politically engaged. So I wanted to say that, and I needed to write it because I knew it wouldn't come out right. So I hope you get that and just the importance of us voting. What's important to me when it comes to the vote, because I'm not just a woman in long-term recovery, but I'm a family member. So it makes a difference for me because I have a brother who is mentally ill and I am his caregiver. So I feel that I have to make sure that I'm there to speak for him. I have a husband who is also in recovery. And I can remember early on when we were engaged, and he was, doing really well. He was like, we're trying to get a house. So we're living in an apartment and really struggling, trying to, build up our credit and do certain things. And so we had built up our credit, and he's applying to become he did really well on the, he wanted to be a firefighter. He did really, really well. So he was honest about on the questionnaire that he was in recovery and that he had had 7 years in recovery. And because of that, he was denied. We went through the process of the application and going and sending reference letters and everything. And it was really a sad point in our life. And so to let you know now, we are homeowners, and we actively scale who's in our neighborhood and who's the councilmen to actually go to speak to them on that level. So in our area, we have some of the council people who come knocking on the door, and we'll invite them in because we're in an area where they like to come and they want the vote. And we sit them down and we say, hey, what's your views on recovery? What are your views on mental health? Because we really want to know. Also, we've done things to act. I also work for Oxford House. So what we're doing in our area is we do go on Capitol Hill when we talk about the vote, because some of the council people, they want to know. They want to help us in that. And that's a good thing to say, hey, what are your views on this? How can you help in recovery housing? How can you help in incarceration? Because a lot of people who are incarcerated are there they need to come out and have a place to go. They need to come out and have a place to work on their recovery so that they can truly be productive and be working on something in life. So it's just so important that we know that. Vote purple. We're here. This is what I've been through. This is what's happening in my life, to advocate. Because yes, the stigma is still there, and we're the ones who have to get the word out that that's not a good thing. We're not living that way anymore. We're changed, and we vote. I love that slogan, I'm in recovery and I vote. I've been using that so much. But now I have the purple slogan to use. But I'm in recovery and I vote. And I'm very active about it. I mean, even before we research it, we research their pages. We type little notes. We even want to meet with you. Hey, can we work with you? Because you're for what we're trying to do. So we want to be when we want to be at the table. Because again, not for us, without us. That's major. Yeah. So not for us, without us. So we advocate that. We let them know, and we still have time. So that's the awesome thing. So we still have time to push it. I was thinking today, and I was like, and I know Joanna, I just want to say thank you, because I was able to call her and piggyback and get, information, and she just worked with me on this, because I just feel so strong when it comes to making sure that they know that we're in recovery and we vote and we have a say. But we just can't sit still and say, oh, nothing's going to happen anyway. Your vote counts and it matters. So I can remember this, and I wanted to share this, because even when I couldn't vote, I was on the Student Government Council, and our thing in student government was to get people to vote. So I was talking to my husband about that today, and I was like, wow, that happened pretty young before I got an active addiction. We can do that too. Even get our, students involved, our sisters, our brothers. But totally, for me, it's all about advocating. And we do vote. So I really appreciate having the opportunity and the platform to share part of my story. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Anna, just hands up, awesome. Before I turn it back over to Joanna, I think you tagged on a couple things that I think that's really powerful throughout this discussion, is that you're a family member in recovery, which I believe is awesome. And we have to do more efforts to through civic engagement, to get our community members, loved ones, family members, faith-based organizations, and our young people on board to be a part of the recovery movement. So again, I thank you. I'm sure that Joanna does, and you're doing fantastic work, and I thank you for all you do for recovery.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
That was great, Anna. I told you he's gonna kill it. All right, so our next speaker is calling in from Huntington, West Virginia, and his name is Clarence Falk Jr., and he is a person in long-term recovery for 6 years. He works at the Huntington City Mission, and he is the men's coordinator. He is also attending Huntington Junior College, and, well, I'm not going to read that last part with jobs and hope, Clarence, because that's something I'm hoping that you'll go ahead and share with us when you speak. So take it away.
Thanks, Joanna. I guess you know what I like to start off with saying is what Joanna alluded to is I've been working with Jobs of Hope to get my record expunged. I have 2 drug felonies, which is a part of my story, which has helped me back from being able to vote. But hopefully in 45 days, my record will be expunged and I will no longer be a felon. You know, but
Right.
what I really would like to talk about is like the barriers that, you know, I went through with voting. You know, I come from a background, you know, where I guess you could say it wasn't cool to vote. You know what I'm saying? So like, you know, registering to vote, hitting the polls, it was something that, you know, people didn't do, you know, where I'm from, you know, and being a Black male, you know, I think that it's important, you know, that I get other individuals, Black males, white women, anybody, you know, to register to vote. I myself have never voted. This will be my first time ever voting. I actually registered to vote at the reentry event in Charleston a couple months ago. You know, I have my voter registration card, and, you know, I'm ready, you know, today to make my vote matter. You know, but a lot of barriers that I went through, you know, some being a convicted felon, you know, and it's funny how, like, I never really cared about voting until I got those felonies and I was told that I couldn't do it. You know, and it's amazing how you want to do something when you're told you can't do it. But you know, I am a person in recovery, and I work at the Huntington City Mission as the men's coordinator, and I have 7 staff members that work under me, and 6 out of 7 of staff members are in recovery, and 6 out of 7 of my staff members have felons. You know, so I understand how hard it was, you know, for me to be able to find employment, which is another barrier, you know, to being a person in recovery, because my felonies came directly from my drug addiction, you know, and I myself have challenged my staff members to register to vote, you know, to make their vote count. And I just like to see, you know, more emphasis, you know, with my personal story in the Black community, to see more individuals of color, you know, make their vote count, you know, and understand that not only do our lives matter, but our votes matter too, you know. And I don't really have a whole lot to say, you know. I just wanted to touch on those few points about the barriers that people go through, you know, with trying to vote, and the barriers with employment, and just, I would just like to see, you know, more legislation for people to be in recovery, to be able to do the things that I guess you would say normal people do, you know, and that's vote, you know, and that's live life, you know, and have a family and and have the American dream, I would say. But I'm real grateful and real thankful for being asked to do this, and that's about it.
Thank you so much, Clarence. I want to hit on something real quick, what he just did. I am 31 years old. I do not have any, I'm not a convicted felon, and this will be my first year voting. I think that's something that we've heard across the board from a lot of people. This is a lot of people's first year voting, especially people in recovery. And I'm so excited. And Clarence, you did a great job. Thank you so much. And I'm gonna send it back to you, T.
Yeah. Clarence, a couple things that you touched on, I thought was really impactful, that not only are you a person in long-term recovery, but you're a person who navigated the criminal justice process. And as you all know, COVID really shut down a lot of things for us as far as pertaining to getting things moved, and such as decriminalization, and being able to educate those that not only that you're incarcerated, but depending on your state, you still may be eligible to vote. So I hope that you guys hang on to learn about those tools. Clarence just hit the nail on the head when he really spoke about it. Like, not only, it wasn't until he, was there that he realized, he was upset because he couldn't vote, so that's some things that we can do as we go along in this call to really empower you and to let you know that, yes, you are eligible depending on your state. And when you learn about going on with this call, the tools that you'll be provided, you'll see that you have a voice and a choice to make a difference within your state and across America. So I thank you, Clarence, for being on. So I think everyone I hope that you guys are following me, how we're just tearing down some silos throughout this call. We have discussed, recovery in a broad base, learned a new hashtag, talked about stigma and now decriminalization. So we're like tying a knot, right? So our next person that we would like to introduce is Dr. Nicole Kelly. Dr. Nicole Kelly is from Baltimore, Maryland, and she has been, for over 25 years, she has been supporting others through public service. She's a community organizer. She has been currently engaging and enrolling individuals to register to vote. She's outside daily campaigning throughout her days. And I just wanted to thank her. She's also a part of Impact. So thank you so much for joining, Dr. Kelly.
Thank you, T, for that wonderful introduction. Greetings and salutations, everyone. I'm Dr. Nicole Kelly from the great state of Maryland. I am an advocate, ally, and a family member of various individuals who are in long-term recovery, as well as I work with individuals in the mental health and recovery fields. Currently, I am an entitlements coordinator for Shepherd Pratt in Baltimore, Maryland, where I have close to 600 clients who suffer from co-occurring disabilities, from mental health to substance abuse. Also, I work in the recovery field as a direct care worker and PRP worker, assisting individuals who live in recovery residencies engage in developing their personal development skills, as well as getting back into society as members, moving forward in their lives. And I want to talk a little bit about civic engagement and why I became involved in that factor. Currently, I work under Impact as a public relations in the voting process arena. So the purpose of me working in that portion is to train individuals to be volunteer voting registrants in the field, to go out not only in the community, but also in recovery residencies to assist individuals who are registering to vote. A lot of the clients that I've dealt with do not feel that their voice is heard, so they have not registered. They could be 30, 40, 50, and I've even had 60-year-olds who have not registered to vote throughout their lifetime because they do not feel that their voting will make a difference not only in their local community, but on a broader scale in our national arenas. So just getting out on the vote and mobilizing teams, I've been able to register individuals to volunteer. We go out to different locations. We ask the questions, we answer questions, because a lot of people have questions about their backgrounds. We talk about decriminalization. We talk about their past history. And once they find out, yes, in the state of Maryland, they can vote with certain backgrounds, then they're more apt to go and sign up. And we also let them know that they are part of the process. We want to hear their voice. We want to understand what they've gone through over the years, and who better to go in the recovery community and see what's out there, and to also advocate for others to go out, are individuals that are going through the recovery process. And as well as starting to talk to their families about the recovery process and the voting. We have to make sure we definitely vote purple. And we also have to remember that those individuals have family members who have been affected as well. So we want to make sure that it's a team effort, and we want to make sure everyone gets out and vote, especially during these times. Our civic engagement does not stop with just the October 13th deadline we have in the state of Maryland. We're going to continue the process of going up well beyond the cutoff point here and to continue on to make sure not only are our individuals in the recovery residencies are registered to vote, as well as staff members and the community. We have to make sure everyone hears what we're talking about. Recovery is very important. There are a lot of platforms, a lot of laws up for review, and a lot of new laws that have come on the books that need to be heard and voted upon in a positive direction, especially to make sure we have the funding and the support that's needed in order to push what we need to increase our recovery process for our community. And I'm so glad that I got the opportunity to be a part of this platform and going out and speaking with individuals and making sure that's a team effort, whether you're an ally, an individual in recovery, or a family member, to make sure we mobilize together, get out and vote in the process. Not only do we use recovery voices, we also use the paper ballots. Not everyone wants to do the internet because, you know, a lot of people have a lot of questions. So we make sure we do have the paper ballots to vote, to register handy, so that we're serving all that we can. And then some individuals don't want to talk to us, or they're not comfortable as of yet. So we also make sure that we do have the paper registration available so they can feel more comfortable. And we do encourage those individuals to reach out to our organization, as well as myself and Impact, if they have any additional information that they need, or they just need information in reference to where the polling place is, how they can get the mail-in ballots in. So we make sure that we cover a lot of different topics when we're mobilizing our team for the voting registration process. So I just wanted to speak upon about civic engagement in the community and how we're helping individuals in recovery residencies, the communities and their families get out and register to vote. And not only that, to make sure you vote. Make sure you get out and vote as well. Thank you, and I appreciate the time for having me as a panelist here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. I think one of the amazing job as always, but I wanted to also mention that leave one behind, right? So you may have someone that may not be really willing at that time to be engaged, but just leaving the ballot behind, maybe they'll pick it up. You know, it's no different than leaving naloxone behind for someone. Leave it behind. You know, maybe and leave your card. Maybe you can start another conversation. Maybe they want to ask you questions in private. You know, maybe they don't feel, you know, that this is the time right now, but be that connection, be that person that they can reach out to and perhaps be able to ask some questions. If you're not the person, also navigate them. So you want to learn all about that. I don't want to steal it away with the tools that we have to offer you today, but you're going to learn all about that as we move on throughout the call. Again, thank you very much, Dr. Kelly, for your presentation. So next we have Mr. John Winslow, and with over 44 years of continuous recovery, John Winslow is the founder of International Recovery Day Incorporated. He is also the past coordinator for NCADD Maryland's Recovery Leadership Program and past president of a Maryland Addictions Directors Council, NADC. And until retiring from state service as the director of the Dorchester County Addictions Program and founded Dry Dock Recovery Wellness Center in Cambridge, Maryland, he has provided prevention, his knowledge, skills, and abilities, I'm going to add that, treatment services and recovery-related trainings and workshops on a regional, statewide, and national levels. And with that, I thank you for joining us, John.
Thanks a lot, T. My name is John Winslow, and person in long-term recovery, as T had mentioned. And first of all, Garrett and Aaron, I just want to thank you for the work that you have done on a national level to work on this particular project, and for the recovery advocacy work that you have been doing. Also for Joanna, we haven't known each other for all that long, but from what I've seen on social media and the short interactions that I've had with you, you are really out there charging away, and I really commend that. And then finally, T, you and I have known each other for quite a while now, and I just have always been impressed by not only your passion, but turning your passion into action. and getting out there and making things happen. So I'm glad to be here today. When T had first invited me to join you guys today and speak on this panel about the importance of the recovery vote, I was really questioning, why me and what do I really have to offer here today? And although I really have my doubts about the limitation, or some degree of doubts about that, part of, I guess, just part of my philosophy in recovery is that, when I'm given an opportunity, when I'm asked, I wanna respond. That's one of the things I was taught in my very early recovery, is not to say no. And so even though I may sometimes doubt, the value of what I may be able to contribute, who knows what I say or how I might touch someone. So I was willing to go ahead and step out in faith and agree to do this. And hopefully somebody will find something of value. I do want to begin by not necessarily a disclaimer, but an explanation that as a person in recovery, I'm coming from a place of my background and my core is through 12-step recovery. So a lot of what I have to say and offer is based on the foundation that I have built over the years with my engagement in recovery. So T had posed some questions to me that I want to try to respond to one at a time. And I don't have a whole lot to say about these different things, but the first was just about the questioning about, why is it important to vote? And so I wanted to just start by saying back, thinking about when I was back there in my active addiction, I was a perpetual victim. And, stuff was always happening to me. And I, as a result of my getting deeper and deeper into my addiction, I ended up surrendering greater and greater amounts of personal power in my life. And it just got down to just that very narrow circle of me and my addiction, and feeling totally disempowered, powerless. And it was at that point where I really surrendered to my powerlessness that my world absolutely turned around. And it was through the power of example, the people that came down the path before me, that showed me through their example to learn to begin to take responsibility for myself, not only just for my recovery, for not drinking and drugging one day at a time, but for, I was one of those that didn't pay taxes. I was called up into Philadelphia, living in Maryland at the time, and had a regional meeting with the guys with the IRS, scared to death, but, I had to take responsibility and say, hey, I might only be able to give you $5 a month, but my commitment is to continue to pay you back to the degree that I can, and I'll just chip away. And I worked out an agreement with them and a number of others to do that. And so that was an example of me beginning to learn to take responsibility for myself and to become empowered. And so that sense of empowerment has grown over time. One of the things that I need to be mindful of is that sense of balance. And I really love a framework that came to me through A Course in Miracles and through Marianne Williams, that concept that about the sunbeam that thinks it's the sun. And so I need to always try to keep my ego in check and make sure that I'm not the sunbeam that now thinks I'm the great I am. But so it's a balance of, when I first came into the program, feeling like lower than whale shit, but not to get ahead of myself and think that I'm greater than I am. So trying to be my fullest self to the degree that I can. And that includes a sense of civic responsibility. And so that is very important to me. I have no right to complain about who's the president of the United States or who my senator is if I didn't vote. And so, I just get off the victim seat and I take responsibility and I do what I can. And while I recognize that I'm not responsible for the outcome, I'm responsible for the footwork. I vote.
Mhm.
If the person that I haven't, that I voted for doesn't get into office, well, so be it. I need to live with that, but that doesn't mean that I need to stop there. I can move on. So I wanted to get those pieces out about my personal sense of the importance of the recovery vote. It was a question about barriers. What barriers do I see or that I have experienced? As you can see, I'm a white male. And I certainly I have that full and have had that full white privilege. Even when I was in my active addiction, I'm sure that white privilege, served me in ways that that it was working to the detriment of many other people. So I can't say that I've experienced any personal barriers, but I've certainly am very aware of many barriers that are out there. I'm calling into you from Virginia Beach now. I'm a snowbird, and in the summertime I'm up in Virginia Beach. In the wintertime I'm down in Florida. So I'm actually a resident of Florida. And for those of you that may not be aware, that one of the things that Florida's had is that the people that had been incarcerated and have a criminal record and that were not allowed to vote. And so there was a big deal where they finally had turned that around and gave, that ex-felons, if you will, pardon that expression, that term, gave them the right to vote. However, the governor then stepped in and said, well, if you have fines that you have not paid off, then you're ineligible to vote. So some of you may have seen that that the former mayor or Governor Bloomberg, Michael Bloomberg, ended up recently paying off the fines of those people that still had, had unpaid fines, which allowed them. So there's an example of, barriers that, artificial barriers that were put in people's way to prevent them from voting, and so we know that a lot of that has occurred in ways very large and very small, gerrymandering. We know that there have been widespread efforts to block marginalized people of color, for instance, and so forth. So although personally I haven't experienced, those efforts or barriers to block people from voting, I know that that certainly occurs on a widespread basis. And, and I do take responsibility for taking steps that I can, such as speaking out right now and drawing attention for people that may not be informed to be aware of that. So T's next question was, why is the effort in civic engagement important to me? Well, it's already been mentioned by Anna, I think it was, that concept of nothing about us without us, and so I just think that is, that just resonates with me, that, that for so many years, decisions have been made around a variety of different local, regional, statewide, national, and international tables about people that are in active addictions themselves, or people that are in treatment, people that are in recovery, without people that have experienced that, have the lived experience not being at the table. And so I think it's important for us to all be very much aware of that, and to consider the personal actions that we may take to include educating and informing others about the importance for us to be at the table. And if I'm aware of a situation of importance to the recovery efforts, these Vote Purple efforts, and I don't say anything, well, that I got to live with that. And there's certain things that I'm not willing to live with. So that nothing about us without us, in my recovery program, we have this responsibility card. I am responsible whenever, anyone, anywhere, and it goes on so forth. So, I am responsible. And that's one of the things that I have learned through my recovery is to take responsibility for myself, and that there is a broader sense. It's not just about me, it's about us, this whole we concept. And so there's this spiritual concept, a query of, if not me, who? If not here, where? If not now, when? And so I need to look myself in the mirror and ask myself those questions, and what am I going to do about it? And by doing so, that really has enhanced my personal and spiritual and my social growth over time. And so the last question that T had posed to me was, what efforts have you have you or currently working to mobilize recovery? And so one of the things that I'm doing is I'm on this participating in this panel here on a Saturday. Not necessarily something that I wanted to do, but I was asked to do, and I felt that I should, I need to set the small s, the small self aside, the ego aside, and step up and do something. It doesn't, you guys all get that, I'm sure. So one of the things that I can do is what I'm doing is participating when I'm asked to, and share my own experience, strength, and hope with that. Encouraging, one of the big things I do, because I do a lot of things, as many of you know, I do a lot of stuff on social media. So one of the things that I do is I put a lot of stuff out there on social media. So I've recently had put out the vote badge that we have for recovery. And there's a lot of other things, to simply reposting about information about this workshop. There are, a number of little things that I can do that may not seem to make a whole lot of difference. But one of my great heroes is Mahatma Gandhi. And he said something to the effect of, anything that I do is not all that important, but it is so important that I do it. And so that's a deep belief that I have. So one of the things that I've done, John Shinholzer talked about it also, Big John. I'm very much of a tightwad, and I don't spend money easily. And so for the second time in my life, I made a political contribution. So that's something that I could do. It wasn't a lot, doesn't need to be a lot. It would have been irresponsible for me to spend a lot on it, but I was able to make a little bit of a contribution. And finally, I just want to, in wrapping it all up, we have so much divisiveness going on in our country, politically and otherwise, and I see it happening within the recovery community, and it pains me when I see it happening, and some of the ugliness really coming out. And one of the things historically that we've done is, you guys have probably heard the concept of we get the wagons in a circle the wagons, and then we fire inwards. And I've just seen so much of that. Again, it pains me to see that. And so just the importance of being civil. I had a conversation with my daughter that's had a lot of addictions, mental health issues in her life as well. And I talked about that, that we can disagree with one another without having to be disagreeable. And so I think as things intensify, as we come up to this national, as well as the statewide, voting this time, let's work on being civil as we don't have to agree with one another, but we can do it civilly. There's a role, and we can take the high ground, and we can lead by example. And here's where the recovery community has an opportunity to lead by example to not only others in recovery, but to the rest of the world as well, that we can express our views, but we can do it visibly. T, turn it back to you. Thank you.
John, as always, thank you so much for your input and insight. A couple of things that you mentioned on it just really stuck with me: the personal responsibility, right? Just the willingness to even invite yourself to the invitation, even think about voting or vote recovery. And then the civic responsibility that you added on, like, I need to take charge in that. What part am I playing in that? And then taking action, even if you're unable to do anything financially, but even sharing it simply on social media. You talked about that, how just sharing a post or a message can actually influence or change someone's mind about the recovery vote. Please do that. Like and share as much as you can. Everyone on the call, John, you mentioned it several times, so I thank you about that. And then being honest and being positive about whatever the outcome is, as long as you're standing true and through on vote recovery, right? Vote purple, whatever you want to hashtag it to be, and then owning that as your own effort to make a change within your community and a difference in the world. So John, thank you so much for being on the call today. I thank everyone for being, all of the panelists, and we'll have our final one coming in, which is Brooke Feldman. book from, and I have been following social media, is an amazing thing because you're able to connect with people across different states and like even different countries as it pertains to recovery. And Brooke, I have been watching Brooke for a very long time. She's making awesome efforts in community organizing in PA. And I just wanted to thank, she's in long-term recovery, doing amazing work. And I thank you for all your campaigning and your efforts. Welcome, Brooke, to the floor. Brooke, are you there?
I'm here. Thank you. I feel like everything good has been said, and I could just say hi and check you out. Yeah, it's great to be here, and I echo the appreciation for on a Saturday people showing up. I do direct service work, so I don't have Zoom fatigue. I have just direct service fatigue, but I know enough people who are on Zoom meetings all day every day, and so on a Saturday to hop on here is huge. So I'm glad that there are people here and appreciate it. And sort of same as John, Aaron reached out and asked if I do this, and one thing I learned is when you're asked to do something, if you can do it and you feel like you have something to contribute, then go for it. So here I am. I was raised up sort of in the recovery advocacy movement. About 14 years ago, I started working for an organization called ProAct in Philadelphia, and Beverly Haverly, which is a pretty well-known name across the recovery landscape. She was my boss, and she would talk about voting, and we had these campaigns to get people registered to vote. Facing Voices of Recovery was doing the Recovery Voices Count initiative even back then. And, for me at age, I was like 25 years old at the time. During my active addiction, I pretty much lived on the margins of society. Like, most of us who are in recovery have, and like people who are using drugs today are living, so in some ways my using drugs to kind of numb and escape was because I didn't want to participate in society or in life, my own life or the world around me. And so when I heard all this stuff about voting, I was definitely, in that disenfranchised category. I was like, it doesn't even matter, it doesn't matter, just one vote. Like what's the difference going to be in my life? And so that's kind of where I came from when it comes to voting. And I just say that to kind of normalize the experience, I think, of a lot of people. It's like, when you pile on different intersecting marginalized identities, if you're a person of color, if you're a member of the LGBTQ plus community, if you've grown up poor, all these things, it just adds like layer to layer of why would my vote matter? And I kind of compare it to the struggle that people often have when it comes to a concept of God or a higher power in early recovery, right? You're kind of like, well, if there's a higher power, then why did I experience all this trauma and all these hardships, and why has my life been so hard? And it's sort of the same thing with voting, right? And so I think when we talk about constituency of consequence or of concern, I don't know if that changed over the years. I was like, okay, is it still consequence? I don't know. We see that with other single voter issues, right? Whether it's pro-life or pro-choice or gun rights. There's different issues that have really kind of mobilized like this single issue voter constituency of consequence. But we haven't been able to do that with recovery yet. And I think we could have days worth of Zoom meetings and really have Zoom fatigue if we try to figure out why have we not been able to really mobilize a constituency of consequence in the way that folks who are running for elected office positions really have to care about speaking to what our needs are and answering to us and being held accountable. And so one thing I bring to this conversation is a couple years ago, I did some consulting work for a local candidate for state representative. And I saw Aaron put it in the chat, and I can't emphasize this enough, that local, that it is in local, sort of elected office positions that we really need to focus and not just get totally distracted with national politics, because, local is where we really have an opportunity to have an impact and where we see policies directly impact, the folks that we serve. And, when I worked on this person's campaign and they're running again, so they lost and then, they're running again, I was like, oh, well, we'll mobilize the recovery community in Philly. We're experiencing just horrific, rates of overdose deaths, like is an issue that's on the top of people's minds. The press is covering it. This will be the time where we really get this constituency of consequence and, get behind this person in recovery who's running for office, who really gets the issues and who will really represent, the needs and the voices of people in recovery in the state legislature. And, when I engaged or, embarked on this mission to get the local recovery community to care about this person who's running and to get involved, it was like crickets. Like it was really hard to kind of mobilize any support. And interestingly, this person just texted recently and was expressing frustration about just his inability to really, get the local recovery community behind his run for office. And, after years of advocating, and maybe I'm just burning out from like the please listen to us and meet our needs. I think that the next evolution is like we're running for office ourselves, right? Like rather than, having to beg and plead with elected officials to care about what our needs are, we're saying, you know what, F that, like I'm going to run for office. And so here we have someone who's doing that, but just hasn't been able to get the support. And so I think for me, one thing I've learned is, we really need to, in addition to getting out there and voting for folks who are going to represent the things that we need and that the people that we care about need, is also, if you feel so moved, is to run for office yourself. And to, if you know someone running for office, to support that person. There was another person who ran for like a local city council position who had no wasn't like a social worker, had no experience politically, and just was like, I'm tired of my friends dying and a city council that is just not doing anything substantial about this issue, and started to run for office, and unfortunately wasn't able to get the number of signatures on the petition to make it very far. But I supported that person, even though social worker Brooke was like, man, she doesn't stand a chance of winning. She's up against someone who has union support and all kinds of political backing. Just to still stand by and support that person was really important. And so I think that everything great that can be said about why it's so important to vote for candidates regardless of political party, who care about recovery, who care about these larger issues that unite many, like dismantling the racist and classist criminal justice system, making opportunities for education and employment available to everybody, housing available to everybody. Some of these larger issues are in fact voting for recovery. And I think, everyone had really great things to say about that, but I just feel like it's important to talk about, some of us really just, getting out there and running for office ourselves. And I guess that's not what this is really about. Maybe that's like next election cycle. It's like, how do we get behind candidates running for office? But it's hugely important. And I think, the last thing I would say is this, after many years of hearing constituency of consequence, hearing folks like Patrick Kennedy talk about like the Tower of Babel and how we all go to our elected officials asking for different things. And so they're not really held accountable to answering any of us, right? Like, one of us goes there, we're like, we need more harm reduction services. And then the next person's like, we need prevention and to just get rid of all the prescription opioids in the world and then we'll be good. And then the next person goes and is like, it's all about mental health. Like drug use is just a symptom. And when we continue to go with these different issues, then elected officials are kind of like, I don't even know what to do. There's one thing I've learned when it comes to, I said, this is typical recovery. I'm going to say one last thing and then shut up, and then you just go on for 5 more minutes. But, anytime I do advocacy with elected officials, I am flabbergasted by how little they know. In that, and I think some of you on here have really, experienced the same thing where, whether it's stigma or discrimination or is just clueless, right? Just have no idea about what the needs are of people, in or seeking recovery. And I'm like, man, they just don't understand. They truly just need education, right? I think, when it comes to being constituency of consequence, it really requires, us uniting around the things that we can and speaking in one voice and getting out there and voting. And, the last thing I want to say for real, and John, you talked about this, right? Like, I'm not rolling in dough. Like, I'm broke. Pandemic parenting is more expensive somehow. I don't know how it is, but it is. You know, I think about like when the basket went around at meetings, right? And that like you gave what you can. And even if it's $1, you put $1 in the basket. You know, being constituent with the consequence in our electoral system means putting money behind candidates we support. And we don't have to like it or agree with it. We learn that whole concept of acceptance, right? Like, it doesn't mean we agree with it. It just is what it is. And so part of demonstrating that we're a constituency that elected officials have to care about and answer to is that we are investing in the candidates who really are going to fight for the issues that we care about. And so even if it is $1, that dollar matters. And so that's another way that we can support. Thanks for letting me share.
Absolutely. I just love to hear you speak. Every time you come on, I'm like locked and loaded. So thank you so much. You covered so many things, but what I will say is, you know, you wrapped it up with doing your part, right? Simply doing your part, being available, advocating locally, doing what you can, supporting what you can. And not only that, you even charge the audience to do something different for themselves if they, you know, don't want to support whoever is campaigning at that time, and actually taking that initiative to do it themselves, which I think is impactful to be on this call and be able to hear that, because I've been on many calls and have never heard that come out. So I'm excited about it. And the chat box is booming, and I'm not for or against anyone on this call, but I'm reading the chat is run, Brooke, run. And that's one of the things that are coming in there. So just looking at that, and the chat box is just lighting up as we're going along. So I just wanted to mention that if you haven't taken an opportunity to take a peek at it, it's jumping off right now. Definitely what you give and what you do can make a difference in the lives of others as it pertains to recovery. And get out, start those conversations. Brooke, I'm glad you brought it up. Get out. Talk to someone, create those connections, go visit, do what you can while you can, because it's true, there's nothing about us without us. And if you don't take the initial steps, be responsible and step up, we can't be upset about the outcomes if we don't step up and make a difference ourselves. So thank you so much, Brooke. Brooke kind of tied the knot for us. She was the last of our panelists. However, I think this is time, and definitely from what Brooke spoke about and the other panelists, and I thank you all for joining in today, is to give you the tools that you need to help organize your communities. So with that, I'll turn it over to Garrett and Aaron, who are on to call today to talk about Recovery Advocacy Project. Thank you.
Thank you, T, and thank you, everyone. My name is Garrett Haight. I'm a person in recovery. I also work with the Recovery Advocacy Project, and I'm going to dive into the tools and I'll run through it. I really appreciate everyone hanging on today on a Saturday and participating. You know, one of the things I just really wanted to emphasize, and Brooke had mentioned it, Aaron had started in the beginning on the chat. The presidential election sucks up so much oxygen, and I know we're all watching constantly, but local issues and local candidate, it's like imperative. And just a quick example, I live in Las Vegas, Nevada now. My friend overdosed in California 3 days ago, and was found by a police officer who had naloxone on him, was able to revive. My friend's alive right now, and he's in treatment. If that would have happened in Las Vegas to my friend, you know, one state away, a 4-hour drive, he would be dead because the police are not required to carry naloxone here. Certain department. That is an elected officer who runs the department, who has decided that is not something he wants his police officers to carry. Meaning, this community has voted for that person, and the people who have voted for him are not aware. They're not hearing from our community because one county over, similar police department does carry naloxone. So I just want to like emphasize like how important just something as like the sheriff of your community, the head of your police department. Those are local offices. So while yes, we're all watching the presidential election that's happening right now, the Recovery Advocacy Project really is trying to get our communities to focus on local, state, Congress. This isn't about Democrat or Republican. As we're all speaking right now, there's a group of volunteers walking around Las Vegas, Nevada, with a Democratic state representative running for office and a Republican congressional candidate running for office, all knocking on doors together, talking about the importance of recovery and talking to registered voters about the issues, with two candidates who don't agree on a lot of things, but they do agree on these issues. So it's a unifying thing. The other part, and I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to go off video so it doesn't slow it down, but like the issues that Brooke had just brought up, like, like if you're talking about homelessness, if you're talking about mental, like you're still educate yourself on the issues that matter most to you and get to the polls based on those issues, because it's still voting for recovery when we talk about healthcare, when we talk about criminal justice. So again, thank you all for being here on this Saturday. I appreciate it. And let me see can I get a thumbs up if you can see my screen right now. Can everybody see it? We're good? Great. So 4 years ago, I went around with some friends and we registered. It was a little over 100 people in the medium age of 24 years old who have never registered to vote before. And lo and behold, people started listening to us. But we went around we got paper ballots. We didn't have tools or didn't know about tools. And our friends registered with a simple message. Are you tired of nobody listening to you, and you're tired of watching your friends die? And they were. And long story short, laws were passed. They stopped doing the whole NIMBY stuff in our, not in my backyard, in our community, because if you think about NIMBY, right? Why does that specific action happen? People who are registered voters talk to their people in office and say, we don't want this happening here. And our community is not represented, right? We're not registered to vote. We're not looked at as important to these elected officials. That stopped when they saw 100 young people register to vote around it. But that being said, we decided that it would be beneficial to our community to create this hub, right? It's the Vote Recovery Hub. We kind of wanted it to be a one-stop shop for our community, our people. I'll dive in. I'm going to try to do this as quick as possible so everyone can enjoy their day. But Aaron had started the discussion by talking about the polling that we did. Now, this is a great tool for you, because the poll for registered voters that we did was in Las Vegas, Nevada, right? It was in Clark County. Clark County is a very transient city, right? County. There's a lot of representation from all sorts of communities. So when we polled this county, what we found was, would people would you switch a party if your elected official had a better stance on addiction and mental health issues? And majority of people, 42% answered yes, which is extremely strong. 34% were, unsure, but they'd think about it. 23% said no. But to a candidate, that is imperative information, right? Being that this is a transient city, like, you guys can come to this site. If you're talking to elected officials, this kind of data will hold weight with them. If you want to dive, I don't want to go too deep into it because I don't want to take up too much time, but if you click where I clicked, and again, I forgot to turn off my video, so it goes slow, bear with me. Should come up any second, there we go. If you want to just dive into the polling, we put it all here. Please feel free to share this with people if you're talking to candidates. Majority of, and again, this isn't the recovery community, this is just registered voters. Majority of registered voters, 79%, said stigma is a barrier to somebody seeking care. Judicial discretion, 68% of registered voters believe that judges should have more discretion when sentencing people. Me, who is somebody who was, I'm a convicted felon. I was caught stealing multiple times. The judge, if I would have gotten in trouble one more time, did not have the discretion. I would have been sentenced to prison. Luckily, I was able to, find recovery. But if I had been in trouble one more time, the judge's discretion would have been taken from him, and I would have been mandatory sentence, right? So voters believe that that's wrong. Judges should have more discretion. And then this just goes back. You can take the survey too if you want. But what Aaron was talking to is we asked the same questions of our community. And, obviously majority of us felt that they would switch party lines if the candidate supported what they cared about in recovery issues. But at the same token, very few of us know where our candidates stand. So dive into this. If you'd like, you feel free to use this, take the survey. I don't want to go in through line because it would take time, but it's all here for you to just look at, reference, share with your local officials. If you're interested in doing something like that, this was a scientific poll done by a polling company. We can, obviously, walk anybody through the process of getting something like that done in your community. Brooke touched on this. We talk about recovery as a voting issue, right? But all the, we could go on and on and on and on and on. Homelessness, affordable housing, veterans, like anything we talk about, at some point recovery is involved in that, right? So like, what is it that personally will inspire you to the polls? Is it Medicaid expansion? Is it mental health? Is it criminal justice reform? One of the things, and I'm referencing Brooke a lot on this, but I agreed with everyone. But one of the things I agreed on is like, we go to our representatives with so many issues, and they're like, I don't know what am I supporting recovery? I don't know. That's why it's so important for us to come together as a community. What are our top 3 priorities? Like, what can we agree on that we all go together and work on? Because at the moment, and it's getting better, but we work in silos. And what can we all agree on that gets us to vote? And if we can do that, elected officials will listen to us. And if we are a registered voting constituency, they have to listen to us because that's what they care about. That's what puts them in office. So if you, where is it? So you can come here. And if you want to, say you have a meeting set up with a, state representative, and you're like, we're going to go in and talk about, insurance discrimination. You can go ahead. This is just a hub. This goes to knowledge bases on different partners and other reliable resources. So it'll take you, if you're going in to talk to somebody about family supports, there's some information here so you can just educate yourself on specific issues. If there's issues here that you think are important and they're not here, message us. We'll do our best to update. This was kind of just our first stab. Throw it out there. This is what we put up. And then let's go into step 3. Elected officials. Clarence had brought it up, right? Like 4 years ago, it was the first time I ever voted. I was 28 years old. I had no idea what I was doing. I voted down ballot. I didn't look at anything. I talked to some people and I said, who do I vote for? But, like now, I want to educate myself, and Aaron brings this up where he actually, he'll get the signs on his door and he calls people's campaigns office and he asks where they stand on certain issues. So we put this here. The point about that, and this goes back to the local thing, is like 4 years ago, I didn't know what was the difference between a U.S. representative and a state representative. I didn't know what does my attorney general do? What does my lieutenant governor do? All these issues that we care about, am I supposed to be reaching out to the senators on, or am I supposed to be talking to my city council member? So you can come here, you can educate yourself on the positions of elected office. Maybe something's happening in your city where it's like, my attorney general is probably not the best person to talk to about this. Maybe it's my school board members, so I didn't know these things 4 years ago. A lot of the people that I talked to who are newly voting don't know this. So we thought it'd be helpful to have this information up here and make sure that when you do identify the issues you want to talk about, when you do identify the issues that are affecting your community, who is it in power that is responsible for that? Who controls the purse strings if it's about funding? Who's presiding over the decisions that happen in the community? You can come here and learn that kind of information. And then finally, step 4, vote. Like I said, this happened, 4 years ago, but our elected officials, they don't know a lot. When we walked into our sitting congresswoman's office and we were like, hey, we've lost 6 friends in the last 3 months while they were living in recovery residences in your district. She's like, what's a recovery residence? Not that she didn't care, she just didn't know. And when we showed up and said, hey, we just registered 100 people to vote, she listened. She helped us work on legislation. Legislation that started at a local level, moved from state and then to federal. So voting is important. Being a registered voter is important. It'll allow us to build the power and build that constituency. One of the things, if you click on View Voter Tools, here you can, if you're able to online register, you can register to vote. You can check your voter registration status. A lot of the times that people will say, I'm not allowed to vote, I'm a convicted felon. That's not always true. Come here, check your status. I was a convicted felon who thought I couldn't vote. It was not true. If you need to find your polling place, if you, registration deadlines, I forgot, I think somebody said March or October 13th in Maryland, if I might be the wrong date, but states have different deadlines. You can come here and check it out. And then you can, you know, vote recovery pledge. So I'll let Aaron talk about that and he'll put it in the chat. And then
Yeah, I just did. If people want to take that action, I put it directly in the chat. It's just talking about how, you know, it's almost like a pledge to keep recovery in mind when you go to the polls and volunteer to register somebody else to vote. That's literally all the pledge is. And so that's one of the actions that we're asking people to do off of here. And then that last piece that I think that Garrett wants to talk about too.
Go ahead,
There's
Aaron.
we heard a lot about voter restoration. A lot of that is different state to state. And so we have a quick link for voter restoration. We have a section where you can go if you get turned away at the polls, or if you're intimidated at the polls for any reason, there's ways you can report violations. And so there's quick links for that. Spanish speaking as well, different populations. And then learning more about voter suppression, voter ID laws, like these are all things that we can do as educated voters. And I think the last thing that we're asking people to do, we created one more website. It's called, if you want to create like a 60-second video of you talking about why you vote recovery.
Did we lose John?
Yeah, okay. Garrett, your mute's on.
My mute? Aaron?
Aaron's on.
Sorry, when did that happen?
Just
I don't know.
Okay. And so we're asking people to make their own like 60-second videos. So you heard from a lot of voters today, but you can make your own, you know, talk about what inspires you personally. And so if you go to voterecoveryvideo.com, that'll bring you to a website where you can create your 60-second video. And we'll probably do some like get out the vote work with people's clips and stuff like that. And so we hope that, you know, this is, especially if you're a first-time voter, I think that this is we've had these discussions all across the country, and to hear what inspires each person. And then Garrett referred to this, like I've spent some time thinking about the issues that I care about, and I get mailings all the time. I get door hangers on my door. I collect all that stuff. I don't throw it away right away. I look to see if there's anything around it related to addiction on the flyer. If there's not, I go right to the website and I contact the campaign. Sometimes it's like just opioid related, and I'm like, it's a larger discussion about that. And so we can use this opportunity as recovery voters to really educate the people that are running for office. I've literally, I was in a coffee shop in Pennsylvania a couple of years ago, and there was somebody running for office, and he was the opposite party of what I normally vote for. But I talked to him about addiction and recovery, and I ended up volunteering to write the language on his website based off the conversation that we agreed on, based on the conversation that we had. We put content around addiction recovery on his campaign website. And like, we can all take those little like local actions that make a huge difference. Like if they're running for office and they don't have a stance on something that's killing people every day, why do they not have that? And demand that. You know, for me as a recovery voter, like passing a resolution to recognize Overdose Awareness Day is like not a thing for me anymore. Like that's not enough. Like where's the action? And so like a lot of this is like we have to decide that piece for ourselves. And when you hear that phrase, constituency of consequence, like what is that consequence if we're ignored? And so I think if we think about that, and you know, I think this is the beginning of us kind of like taking steps to you know, building that constituency out. And so thank you to all of the speakers and the attendees. I want to turn it over back to T and Joanna to see if they had anything else to wrap up, but this has been a great event. So thank you everybody for attending. Anything else, T or Joanna?
Yeah, and I do. I have something else. So I just wanted to just briefly jump in, and I also added an action as a segue to introduce yourself to your community members and just tell them why you want to support recovery. So it's an action listed there. It's really quick. You can tell them whether you're a supporter, a person in long-term recovery, a family member, or impacted and family member such as myself, and you'll automatically receive a response back from the Action Network letting you know, like, hey, thank you, and we'll be able to still contact you beyond that. And two, that those letters through that action goes directly to your community members, which is really important to make an impact locally. So Action Network gives you great tools which you can help organize. If you're interested in becoming an organizer, you can reach out to us. We thank you all for being on the call. I am Tiffany Scott, and I'm gonna turn it right back over to Joanna if you want to say some closing words.
We were gonna have a fun little mock election, but not everyone showed up. So Joy, you don't even have to give everybody all chocolate for free. You win by default. We were gonna do a 2-minute with 3 speakers, 2 minutes apiece for civic engagement to vote on, just as a little practice. Nobody was gonna win anything, or just to Joy won. Yes, Joy won. She's over there saying I won. But we
show up and show out. So exactly. The person that shows up automatically wins.
That's how I feel. That's how I feel about our vote recovery stuff too. We send that stuff out to all of our candidates, and the ones that respond, those are the ones that we know that they stand with us. I don't really have anything else to say aside from thank you everyone for taking the time out to be with us and to have this call on your Saturday, and vote recovery, vote purple, engage with your candidates, tell somebody else to vote, help somebody else to register. And don't forget, submit a video. They don't have to be 90 seconds. They don't have to be 60 seconds. I think mine was like 40 seconds. I think Carol Cruz told me, I think hers was like 30. So submit a video and tell us why you vote recovery.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, guys. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. And I'm reading the chat as we're closing out. Thank you so much. Thank you.